Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Happy Mind, Happy Life podcast, where we take a few minutes each week to pause, breathe, reflect, and connect about how we can create more peace, more joy, and more calm in our everyday life. I'm your host, Michelle Werdeman, and I am so grateful you decided to hit play today. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Happy Mind, Happy Life podcast. I hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you're listening from. Today's conversation is one that has become incredibly important in my own life. And honestly, it's something I wish I had understood years ago. And we're talking about the nervous system. And before we dive in, I just want to mention I am not a doctor, I am not a licensed therapist. What I'm sharing today comes from my own experiences, things that I've learned over the years, and conversations that I've had with many people who have had similar experiences. And I have done a lot of research on this, and it's something that just makes me super giddy. And I'm not going to get all sciencey, don't worry. This is more just a conversation about life, like about stress, about survival mode, and learning to really start to listen to ourselves, like tuning in and listening to how we're doing emotionally. Because one of the things that surprised me was, for years I didn't think I was stressed out. I just thought I was busy, and actually, if I'm being completely honest, I thought that I was thriving. And in some ways I was. I had built a successful career, I was raising my family, I was accomplishing goals, I was doing many of the things I had worked really hard to create. So I was thriving in some areas. But looking back now, I also see that part of me was just surviving, like total survival mode. And not in a dramatic way, not in a way that anyone on the outside would have noticed, but just in that quiet way so many of us do. Like, we push through, we take care of everyone, moving from one responsibility to the next and telling ourselves, like, oh, we'll slow down later, we'll rest later. I know a lot of people joke, they're like, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. But yeah, for a long time, I didn't realize, and this was probably over the course of, my mid 20s up until my late 30s, actually probably 40. Because when I look back, I can see that my nervous system had been carrying far more than I realized. And if you had asked me back then, like, oh, how does your nervous system work? I would have had no idea. But anyway, there were certainly stressful situations and seasons of my life. At one point, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he was in Iraq, deployed for 13 months. My parents had gotten divorced after 30 years of marriage, which they've been back together for a while now. And I was balancing work, and then, got married, raising kids, managing a household. I had a long commute, and a lot of weekends I was by myself with the kids because my husband had military stuff, or he'd go away for weeks, and I was still juggling a full-time job. And one of the things I've come to understand about all that is, like, I knew that stuff was stressful, but I didn't really stop long enough to process all of those things as they were happening. And it wasn't because I was avoiding them. Simply, it's life kept moving. Like, I still had to go to work. I still had to, share the responsibilities and take care of people, and people were depending on me. And I think that's what many of us do. We don't necessarily ignore what we're going through. We just keep functioning. We just keep showing up, like handling the next thing. And what I've learned is, over time, when you do that, you stop noticing what's happening underneath the surface. And when we stop noticing what our nervous system is carrying, we don't realize how much energy it takes to constantly be on. So I would say probably around the end of 2016, 2017, something started to shift for me. out of what felt like nowhere, I started getting super bad anxiety. And I am not a worrier. People would ask me what I was anxious about, and I literally had no idea. And those eventually turned into panic attacks. And I just remember thinking, like, what is happening to me? Because everything seemed fine. Yes, I knew I had a little bit of stress in my life, but everything looked like and felt like I had it all together until out of nowhere all of this started to happen. And looking back on it now, I don't think those panic attacks and that anxiety came out of nowhere. I think they were messages. Like, I think my nervous system had finally reached a point where it couldn't keep carrying everything the same way anymore. It was kind of like as if my body was tapping me on the shoulder saying, like, hey girl, you need to pay attention. Like, something needs to change here. We cannot continue to do this forever. And while I didn't understand it at the time, those experiences became the beginning of really a much bigger journey for me, a journey into learning to listen to the signs that my body was giving me, learning to pause, learning to become more aware of what was happening inside of me instead of only paying attention to everything that was happening around me. Because up until that point, I had spent a lot of my life measuring success by productivity or achievement and just really checking all of the boxes. But eventually, I started asking different questions to myself. Like, what is success? Like, how is it changed? What if this also includes peace? Like, what if success includes presence or includes feeling calm in my own body? And honestly, like, those questions started to change everything. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned is that survival mode doesn't always look the way that we think. Sometimes it doesn't look dramatic at all. Sometimes it looks like being the person who gets everything done, the reliable one, the responsible one, the one everybody counts on that says, I got it. Like, that was me, always planning, always preparing, helping everybody, working, managing. And I think eventually, I don't think, I'm pretty certain that it catches up with us. Like, it doesn't mean we're weak. It's not because we're doing something wrong. It's because we're human. And I think sometimes, even though we seem like we're handling everything, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a tremendous amount of stress happening underneath the surface. And I think one of the greatest gifts that came out of my own journey was learning how to listen. And because most of us become very incredibly skilled at paying attention to everything else: email, schedules, responsibilities, deadlines, the needs of our children or our spouses, like our jobs. But very few times, we often are not taught just to how to tune into ourselves. Like, ask the question to yourself, like, how am I feeling? What do I need right now? Like, what do I need in this moment? Am I exhausted? Am I anxious? Am I overwhelmed? Am I, constantly seeking distractions because slowing down feels uncomfortable? And for me, nervous system healing wasn't about fixing myself. And I'm still on this journey of really kind of undoing the years and years of stress that I just didn't allow to surface, which was part of survival mode. That, again, it's all part of being human. But now for me, nervous system healing, it's about reconnecting with myself. It's learning to purposely check in, learning to notice, learning to pause. And honestly, like, that's something I practice every single day. I am not perfect by any means, but what I have found is sometimes I'll think I need something else, but when I stop to pause and I tune in, it's actually something like I might just need like 1 minute of complete silence, like no TV, no background music. And that in and of itself can totally just help me calm down, or, depending on whatever it is that's happening in that moment. But yeah, so I think it's such an important skill to start to practice. When I started to practice to check in with myself, I would set little reminders on my phone because, again, it's so easy to just go through your day and without stopping to notice things. So that was really helpful to me for morning, noon, and night. Just little tiny check ins like, how's Michelle doing today? What do I need? Where am I at in this moment? And yeah, so if that's something that you need little reminders or even sticky notes, that really helped me. So one other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is I've brought it up before in another podcast a while back, but it's decision fatigue. And what I mean about that, one, it is so real. But when we think of constantly doing things and moving and carrying things around, like this is something that I think many of us experience every day without realizing it. So, what is decision fatigue? So, researchers estimate that we have tens of thousands of decisions that we make every single day, literally from the time you open your eyes. Like you made a decision to get out of bed. And a lot of these decisions are tiny, like what to wear, what to eat, which email to answer, which task to tackle first, like whether to respond to that text now or later. And even, you layer on work and family and schedules, appointments, unexpected things that come out. By the end of the day, your brain is tired. And I think this is where many of us become really hard on ourselves. Because have you ever woken up in the morning and thought, okay, tonight I'm not going to have that glass of wine. Tonight I'm not going to scroll on social media. Or tonight I'm going to eat really healthy. And then 5 or 6 o'clock rolls around and you find yourself doing the exact thing you said you weren't going to do. And for years, I thought this was a discipline problem because I would do that with wine. And now I see it differently. And it's not a lack of willpower. Sometimes it's an exhausted nervous system just looking for some relief. And it's a brain that's been managing responsibilities all day long and simply wants comfort. And that's a different conversation because instead of judging ourselves, we can start to get curious. What is it that I actually need right now? And that curiosity is what led me to look at some of my own habits very differently. So for some people, it might be scrolling. Some people, it's food, shopping, or just staying busy. And for me, one of the things that I realized was that my nightly wine wasn't about the wine. It was about relaxing. It was about finally exhaling. And it was about my nervous system getting permission to stop. My brain had learned that wine meant that relief, that wine meant that the workday was over, that the wine meant I could finally just relax. And once I understood that, things really started to change because I wasn't trying to escape my life. Like I was trying to soothe my nervous system. And I think a lot of us do that with some version of that. And again, it's not we're weak, we're not failing, we're human. And because our nervous systems are often asking for something, rest or comfort, connection, or even safety, or just permission to pause, that's where you can start to get curious and look to see what is it that you actually need. And when you start to do that, you can start to heal your nervous system, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It does not happen overnight. Again, I've been doing this work for years, and if you've spent years teaching your body that everything's urgent or stressful or unpredictable, and again, you might not even realize you're doing it, this is going to take some time to teach your nervous system something very different. And there's small things that you can do every day. So I just wanted to share some of the ones that I've seen work personally for me and also some of my clients. One of my favorites is getting outside in the morning and just allowing natural light to hit my eyes. And just a few minutes can actually really support your body's natural rhythms. So even if it's you go outside, maybe the sun's not quite up yet, but even just having natural light first thing or as early as you can in the morning has a tremendous um, impact on your nervous system. And it actually helps you after a period of time of doing this. It actually helps you sleep better. There's a lot of science that I won't get into about that. But yeah, so getting morning light as early as you can in the morning is one of my favorite things. Another is before I look at my phone. So when I get up, I don't look at my phone anymore. I do not use my phone as an alarm clock. I have this really nice thing. It's called the Hatch, and it actually it starts to turn on as if it was the natural sun rising, and then after about, I think it's like 10 minutes or so, it starts to play like really calming music. So I love waking up that way, which it's funny now that it's spring and the birds are out. I'm usually up well before my alarm with the birds. But so that's another thing. And before I grab my phone and before I, check my emails or my texts or my notification, I just take probably about, I would say sometimes it's 30 to 45 minutes, but you could, even if it's just 10 minutes before you check anything, um, really just connect with yourself. I put my hand on my heart and I take a few nice slow breaths and just remind myself, like, I say that I'm safe in this moment. And that might sound kind of silly because I had just woken up and of course I'm safe, but you'd be amazed that when your nervous system interprets, like if you were to look at an email or a text message when you first wake up and it is something that triggered you and you got stressed out, guess what? Your nervous system takes that as a threat. Like, it doesn't understand that it's just an email or it's just a text message. So it instantly starts to get into that fight or flight mode. So just by reminding your system that you are safe and you are, I always say I'm loved too, that you're starting your day in a safety mode versus a stressful, panicky survival mode. And believe me when I tell you, this does make a huge difference. And it is something that literally takes 10 seconds. I will take several minutes just doing this because that's something that I've come to really enjoy in the moment. But if you just repeat to yourself just a couple times with your hand on your heart, that is a great place to start. And another thing that I've really come to enjoy is just walking, and not for, I mean, yes, for exercise, but not for like performance or anything. Just walking and being outside in nature and breathing in fresh air has been a huge tool for me. Like, even if I'm sitting out in my backyard or walking, in the yard and the dogs are there, and I also, if I'm in just my backyard, like, I don't put shoes on or anything. I just really feel very grounded. And I have come to fully enjoy that. And I understand, not everybody, depending on where you live, you might not be able to go outside and walk around barefoot, but that is something that really grounds you because it connects you to nature. And, whether maybe you have a beach near you or tall, beautiful trees or, different walking trails or different sounds, or nature really just reminds us that not everything happens immediately or doesn't have to happen immediately. Because if you think about it, like within nature, growth takes time and rest is part of the process. So if you're able to get out in nature, that is a great tool to have in your toolbox. Another thing is connection to another person, like whether it's a conversation or it's a hug. If you're able to hug your partner or your kids or somebody, even your animals, just experiencing a hug sends signals to your nervous system, again, that you are safe. And our nervous systems, because they weren't meant to carry everything, and especially alone. So connection is really powerful. And I think, one of my other favorites is sometimes just taking a few minutes and sitting in silence, like no scrolling, no television, no podcast listening, no distractions, just sitting and allowing yourself to just be, because we don't do that often. Or maybe you do, and I think that's wonderful. But if you don't, just taking a few minutes to really just sit and be, and you'll notice your mind will start to wander. And if it does, because it's funny, I've mentioned this to a few people that are constantly on the go, go, go. And they've joked that they could never do that because their mind would start to think about what they weren't doing, like what they still had to do. And that's normal. That's going to happen. However, if you can, you just notice it and you kind of just talk back to it. And it's like, okay, yep, thanks for the reminder. I'll check back with you in a couple minutes. And it does. It sounds silly, but you're giving yourself permission to just simply pause and just be, like, be yourself. I will say that I do take this to the next level because there are a lot of times during the day, actually most, depending on what my kids have going on. I either have my phone on do not disturb, or I always have notifications off for the most part. Like, I don't want to be dinged constantly. And now the amount of spam phone calls and voicemails that come through are just ridiculous. But it's just taking a break, because it may not seem like a big deal, but that constant like ding of a message, or looking at your phone, seeing how many unread text messages or unread emails, that actually adds up and does a number on your nervous system. So that's what I do. I don't turn on the news. Like, I'm not ignorant. I know what's going on. It doesn't mean I don't care. I 100% do. But most of the news is fear-based, and that's how it is put out there to the world. And I just choose not to put that into my little bubble, I like to call it. But again, it's not that I don't care. I help in ways that I can, but it's very easy to get wrapped up in all of the noise from the outside world. So as I wrap up today's conversation, I just want to leave you with a few questions. Where in your life might you be operating from survival mode? Are there certain areas that you experience more stress and more overwhelm in, and you almost feel like you're just go, go, go getting by? Because once you start to become aware of, it could even be people, like certain people or places, just certain patterns, that's when you can start to bring them to light. And that's where you can really start to make some changes. And also, what do you reach for when you're stressed or you're overwhelmed? Do you have a tendency to reach for food, mindless snack, or mindless drink, or scroll, or go shopping online? Like, what does your nervous system, what have you taught your nervous system? And again, this is not a bad thing. This is our body, like our brains being human. What is it that you've taught for self-soothing that might not be serving you? And what might your nervous system actually need instead? And in closing, if there's one thing that I hope you take away from today, is be gentle with yourself too. Like, we live in a world that celebrates hustle and productivity and pushing through. And by golly, there is nothing wrong with any of that. But sometimes healing just asks for something different of us. It asks us to slow down. It asks us to listen, to notice, to create small habits and just moments of safety throughout our day. Because healing a nervous system, I have learned, takes time. And it learns safety the same way it learned survival. One breath, one walk, one pause. Just one act of self-compassion at a time. And I just want to thank you so much for being here with me today. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with someone who might need to hear it. And also, if you're not subscribed, if you subscribe, you will be sure to not miss any of my upcoming podcasts. I have some really great conversations coming up. And also, if you like these types of tools, you want more ways to heal your nervous system, you can go to michellewerdeman.com and try my Happy Mind, Happy Life app for free. And I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's just more ways not to overwhelm you, but to really help your nervous system so that you can truly have a happier mind, which does create a happier life. Cheers, my friends. Thank you so much for being here and spending time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, or you think someone in your life could really use this message, I'd love for you to share it with them. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any upcoming episodes and conversations. You can also stay connected with me on Instagram at Michelle Werdeman, or visit michellewerdeman.com for upcoming events, offerings, the Happy Mind, Happy Life app, and so much more. And as always, cheers to creating a happier mind and a happier life.